Thinking about leaving your soul-sucking 9-to-5 job? One of the biggest struggles I see people, especially as women, face is the idea of having that safety net, that enticing perks and benefits, and listening to that head trash of what will people think if I leave. I totally get it, and I've been where you are. That's why I created a free guide to help you if you're thinking about putting in that notice. It's called Unlocking Your Exit Plan. Discover 5 things you need to do before leaving your 9-to-5. This guide is filled with worksheets and steps, so you will have hand-holding along the way. You can download your copy in the link in the show notes, and again, it's totally free. Now back to today's episode. Hey there, let's face it, today's internet world is so saturated and everyone is fighting for that number one spot to be visible. It is no longer about running ads and having thousands of people on your email list. It is about building relationships and networking with others to grow your business and become visible. Hi, my name is Candace. I'm a podcast launch strategist and I help service-based business owners develop and deliver their message to the world by using platforms like podcasting and bringing valuable content to those who need to hear what they have to say. Welcome to the Hello Sis Dorsey podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the Hello Sis Dorsey podcast. I have Kathy today on the podcast. How are you doing today?
I am just wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're so happy to have you on. So could you tell everyone who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Kathy Walterhouse, and I am the professional rule breaker. I'm an ex-corporate girl that decided it was time to go out on my own. And what I do is I help entrepreneurs find their authentic voice and jumpstart their sales.
Oh, I cannot wait until this episode. I'm like, ooh, because everyone cringes when you say sales. Everybody's like, ooh. So this is going to be really, really
Exactly.
Yes. So let's talk about the inspiration behind you starting your business. What was that like for you?
Well, I have been a salesperson for most of my life, and I also am an actress as well. And I thought, well, what's something that I could do that I could combine both of those together. And at that time, I already had started working with some entrepreneurs, trying to help them with their sales. And I started seeing that there was a real need to help people crush their fear of selling, be a little bit more comfortable, especially like during webinars, being a little bit more comfortable with sales, helping them understand that sales is not slimy. It's something that's very necessary in this world. And also really digging down deep and finding their authentic voice. And also, I thought it was time to leave the corporate world and do a little bit of both.
So when you left the corporate world, did you wait until your business started gaining traction? And then you like, okay, bye you guys? Or will you just like, see you, I'll just figure this thing out?
Well, that's what I should have done. But not what I did. I finally decided I had sold close to $1 billion. And my last couple of positions were in very large corporations. And I just one day I was like, this is it. I've reached my limit. And I wanted to go back a little bit to my roots as far as having a little bit more entrepreneurial feeling. One of the first jobs that I got out of graduate school, it was a much smaller company in which they were almost closing their doors, and we were able to make them a publicly traded company. Really, quite frankly, using a lot of the things that I teach now. So, and again, I love helping entrepreneurs. They want to learn, they listen, and they do a pretty good job trying to implement, because that's their livelihood as well. That's where they make their money. So they have to make what their passion is work.
Definitely. And especially with entrepreneurs, they will pay to pay attention.
That's right.
They will pay to learn those things or that small skill that they need to basically move the needle in their business. So they will definitely pay if it's going to help them move the needle or gain traction. They will pay for that. And that's one of the things that I think we don't how can I say this? It's one of the things that us newbies out there kind of don't understand, especially when we're trying to sell a product. We tend to sell to the wrong audience because that audience are just there just to probably get the free whatever it is that we have to offer, and then they don't, pay for your product or, invest in your product. Versus if you get someone that's on their entrepreneurial journey, they are trying to get get move somewhere, get something going in their business. They're like, hey, I really need this. I want to go ahead and pull out my credit card and, pay for this, So it's all about, shifting who you're targeting your message to, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a lot of it in sales is almost like an 80-20 rule. You have to really figure out who your customer is and everything about the customer, and also put yourself in the shoes of the customer. I've always had this rule throughout my entire sales career is sell like you would want to be sold to. And really what that means is put yourself in your customer's shoes and make sure that you're offering something that is really valuable to them and that can help them. Because if you can help them sell their product or service, it's going to affect their life. It's going to affect the life of their family. It's almost like a little bit of a trickle down effect. And like I said, I mean, sales is really, really important, but people, I think a lot of times think that sales is hard hitting. It's one-sided. It really isn't. And I think you figure that out if you spend some time with your customers and really learn about your customers, and you will see, how everything fits. And also, I mean, selling is also about telling a story. It's about who you are and what you bring to the table, and maybe some of the issues that you've had, in your lifetime, right? As far as, maybe it was hard to sell at one time, maybe, whatever it is that people want to sell, what it is, what has affected them so much that they have learned a lot about it, and they want to share their passion with the world. And then also is knowing your customer really, really well. And then taking your customer's hand and leading them to a path that's going to be a better path in their life. That's the ultimate goal, is what can you do to help someone? And when you're helping someone, in essence, you're selling in kind of a strange way.
That's true. I agree. So can you remember a time in your business or starting out where you had a hello moment?
Yes, I've had a lot of hello moments. Well, let's see here. I think part of it is, for me, a little bit of practice what you preach. I did my very first webinar, and it actually went really well, but I felt that I wasn't showing up as much as I should have. I think part of sales, again, is really showing them who you are. And in my first webinar, I had a lot of technology going on, all different things. So I used a lot of slides, and I didn't really get a chance to let these people see me as much as I would like to have, as well as kind of get to know me. I went more into the webinar of what I was teaching. And so that was a little bit of a hello moment. It was so much of a hello moment that I'm actually developing a mini course just on that, like how to show up for your webinar, because I realized I hadn't done that.
That's good. I like that because I want to definitely get into doing webinars and everything. But the thing that trips me up the most is the whole slide thing, because I'm a hands-on teacher. So I like to share my screen and then show you exactly what it is that I'm talking about versus, showing the slides and talking on those slides. I have a hard time doing that.
Well, you know what? Actually, what you just said is almost better, that you're a hands-on teacher. So if you are on camera and talking directly, that's the thing is when you do a webinar, everybody has to remember you're talking to a person. And if you are talking to, your customer, potential customer, and then maybe bring something on, whether it's a whiteboard or to switch into a slide and going back and forth. I find that when people really see the real you, that the amount of sales goes up because there's a little bit more of a connection. When you just have a bunch of slides and talking about the slides, sometimes there's that missing link. There's not that connection. People like to see people's expressions, in unfortunately, the last year or so, with COVID, we lost a lot of that, right? Because we're all wearing masks. And it was so nice, like when you actually got a chance to see people's faces again and see smiles again, like when you're out and about. So, that expression really, I think, lends to a connection that you need to have ultimately with your customer.
That's true. That is so true. Oh, I could talk about this topic on and on because something just popped in my head, but I'm like, Candace, move on.
We can connect later.
Yeah, definitely. Hey there. Are you looking to start a podcast without the tech overwhelm? Let me guess. You probably searched on Google and YouTube on how to get started, but the instructions and video left you feeling like, huh? Well, look no further because I have a free guide on how to jumpstart your podcast without the complex tech talk. Head on over to hellociasdorsey.com/JSP. Again, it's hellociasdorsey.com/JSP. In this free guide, you will get a get started questionnaire, a list of resources, an outline for your show notes, a plan your podcast calendar, a schedule for your episodes, and a podcast checklist. Head on over to hellociasdorsey.com/JSP and download it now. I cannot wait to listen to your first episode. Okay, perfect. So let's talk about how to crush the fear of selling. I can't wait.
Well, there's a lot to that. The main point, I have done exercises with people. It's a mind shift exercise. And it's interesting because I've gotten so much good feedback on that exercise about shifting your mind shift. That was a bit of a tongue twister, wasn't it? But one of the things that I've brought up when I teach that is we have to be really careful on what we say to ourselves. If you start kind of consciously listening to the things that you say to yourself, a lot of it's negative, right? It almost to the point of, I would say, being abusive, but it can be pretty harsh. Some of the things that you say to yourself, like, for example, like, I'm not good at, why would anybody listen to me? I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too thin, I'm too fat, or whatever it might be. That inner language that we sometimes talk about, we do the same thing when we're trying to teach something in that same manner. So after the exercise, I ask people to commit to trying to spend at least 50% more time talking about things, to themselves, in essence, that inner voice that is more positive. So switch something like, let's say, for example, why would anybody listen to me? You could switch it to, I'm a superstar at this subject. This is my passion, and this is something that everyone needs. Something like that. It's a little bit of a shift. So that's, one step. There's another step that's really, really important is taking off all the focus off of yourself, and putting it on your customer. Because ultimately, when you think about it, it's all about them. It's really not about you. And the moment you start thinking about your customer and put your focus on the wants and the needs of the customer, you'll be surprised how much the whole fear goes away. It literally starts evaporating. And so I think anytime people get a little bit scared, when they're about ready to start selling in a webinar, they just, even if they have to have a picture up, next to the camera, if they don't have, any, if it's depending on how they do their webinar, a lot of webinars, you don't see anyone, put some pictures up of maybe some of your customers in the background, just look at them and your fear literally will go away.
I love that. I really do. That's awesome. Especially like because I work a 9 to 5 and I have a team. I'm a supervisor of a team. So what I actually do to get over like my fear of talking to people like on, trainings or anything like that on Zoom that's not work related. I actually practice on my team.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yes, I practice on my team. And I do like, what do you call those? Trial closes. I practice my trial closes on my team as well. So I say, do everybody understand? Are you guys getting this? Let me know if you have any questions. We'll spend time having, a Q&A, or we'll spend time, I'll answer questions or anything. So while I'm teaching them something, or I'm training them on something, or telling them something, right after I explain it, I say, does everybody get it? And then I make sure I get that verbal commitment that, yes, I got it. And I notice that when I do those trial closes on my team members, they don't come back asking me, oh, what about this, about the same subject that we went over? So I started, practicing on them like a webinar so that they can actually obtain the information and I can get that verbal commitment that they understand.
There's something to be said about practicing for sure. Before I did my webinar the night before, I made all my kids, I have 3 boys, I made them log into Zoom, and they had to sit through my webinar. And it was funny because there was a picture of one of my kids in the webinar, and he's like, Mom. So yeah, definitely there's something to be said about that. But it's good to do the trial closes. And, you can even think about what you do on a daily basis, that you're literally selling all the time. You just may not know that you're selling all the time.
That's true.
Like, for example, let's say you have a significant other, or let's just say you're dating. You're just beginning to date. So what are you doing, to that other person? You're literally selling, how great you are. That's what you're doing. So you sell every day, all the time. Like when you go to the restaurant, you're selling. I mean, that's the thing. I think people don't understand. Selling is really about telling a story. And so I think if people focused on just telling a story, they probably would be fine.
That's true. That's true. But then you get those that's hung up on, okay, well, what story should I tell? How should I tell it? Is there a format? Because I'm like one of those people.
You know what that is? That's also a little bit of fear. That's a little bit of analysis paralysis. That is trying to be perfect. And I'm in that boat as well, too, because I always want everything to be absolutely perfect. And what I've learned throughout my sales career, and actually, quite frankly, in acting as well, too, I learned actually a very big lesson in acting, always trying to be perfect, but just to let it go and just be perfectly imperfect, just showing up and doing some action, especially as entrepreneurs, because we are constantly, I don't know about you, Candace, but at least I'm constantly changing and trying to improve, and maybe changing a slide or changing some handout that I have. I'm constantly trying to make things a little bit better, or maybe make a little bit of a pivot.
Yes, I'm the queen of it. I'm the queen of pivot.
The queen of pivots.
I'm the queen of pivots. Yes. Oh, it's so funny. So any last minute advice you have for our listeners out there?
I would, a little bit about like what I just said is just take some action, and don't worry, if you make a mistake, because more than likely, most people will never know ever that you've made a mistake. So if you're trying to sell something, or you're doing a webinar and you make a mistake, no one's going to ever know. They really won't. The only person that's going to know is you. And so just take that imperfect action and just absolutely go for it. You have a passion that you want to share. And quite frankly, you can make the world a better place with what you have to share. And just think about what happens if you can't share, like all the people that, won't have the opportunity to have your course or whatever product or service it is that you want to sell.
I love that. So where can everyone find you?
So my website is www.theprofessionalrulebreaker.com. I'm also on Instagram as well. So it's Instagram/theprofessionalrulebreaker. Facebook is exactly the same. I can be found as the Professional Rule Breaker on all those formats. I'd love for people to reach out. If anybody has any questions, anything I can do to help, I certainly will do that.
Awesome. We'll link all those in the show notes so that everybody can connect with you and reach out to you if they want to know more. Well, Kathy, I'm so happy that you came on the show today. This is really informative.
Thank you. It's been fun, Candace. It's really been a lot of fun. I'm glad that we had a chance to talk. Oh, and before I forget, I have a freebie for folks that are starting out
go ahead.
in
Yes.
sales on my website. So if they go to the professional rule breaker /ultimate, it's the ultimate starter sales starter guide. So that's available for a down. All they have to do is go there and they can download that starter guide.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll go ahead and link that as well so that they can just click and go ahead and download. Yay, thank you for sharing that. Did you like today's episode? I hope you did. Join me next week for more valuable bombs, tips, and tricks on how to grow your business by taking action. If you like this podcast, subscribe and leave us a review, or take a snapshot of this episode and tag me on Instagram at csdorsey_hello. We would love to hear from you.